Greetings. My name is Lauren, and I enjoy friendships all over the world. I bring to you my friend, Dr. Jabor, to read to you passages from his book, Unshackled and Growing. In addition, a PDF version of the book in English is available to you for free on the website friendshippathways.com. I present to you the episode, The Reality of Jesus' Death.
Jesus' death is a reality. What about the idea that someone else was crucified in the place of Jesus? Who could that person have been? Some believe it was Judas who betrayed Jesus. But the Bible says that Judas was found dead after he hanged himself shortly after the crucifixion. If someone else was crucified in the place of Jesus, how could God punish an innocent person? If it was someone else, why didn't that person scream out that he was not the Christ? If God did not want Jesus to be crucified, couldn't he have protected him by having Pilate declare him innocent? If it was someone else who was crucified in Jesus' place, did this other person rise from the dead? More than 500 people saw Jesus Christ after he rose from the dead, as we see in the Bible. If it was someone else who died and rose, how did that person know all those he appeared to? Why were all these people not able to differentiate between the real Jesus and that other person? Some critics try to explain the resurrection by suggesting that Jesus only fainted from exhaustion on the cross, or that he had been drugged, which made him appear to have died. These critics say that after Jesus was put in a cool tomb, he was revived from fainting spell, and thus his appearance was not a miraculous resurrection. The tomb was empty, they say, because Jesus fled to Egypt, or as the Ahmadiyya sect says, he fled to India. But what does medical science say? Is there any possibility that Jesus could have survived the torture and the crucifixion without dying? Modern science is now able to paint a clearer picture of what happened to Jesus. For example, the Bible says that on Thursday evening, one day before the crucifixion, Jesus went with his disciples to a garden by the Mount of Olives near Jerusalem. He moved away a few feet from the disciples to pray alone. The Bible says that as he prayed, he was in a state of anguish, and being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Is this an exaggeration, or could it be true? There is a medical condition called hematidrosis, which is associated with severe stress. The stress causes the release of chemicals that cause the breakdown of capillaries in the sweat glands. The sweat comes out tinged with blood. As for the whipping and the torture, if you have seen the movie The Passion of the Christ, you will well understand what was involved. The soldiers used leather whip with metal pieces and sharp bones woven into it. The whipping, which went all the way down from the shoulders to the back of the legs, cut the body and tore the flesh. Many who were tortured did not even live long enough to be crucified. The whipping and torture carried out by sadistic soldiers often resulted in death. Because of the loss of great deal of blood, the blood pressure went down, and the kidneys stopped producing urine. The victim craved fluids because of the loss of blood, but Jesus was in excellent physical shape, and he survived the torture. The next day, he had to face the cross. The Romans used long spikes to fasten the body to the cross. The pain was excruciating, to say the least. When the cross was lifted up to a vertical position, the person's arms were stretched to the point that both shoulders were dislocated. As Jesus hung on the cross, the only way he could exhale was to push at the spike, holding his feet to the cross. The agony and pain in this breathing process are unimaginable. The crucifixion was a slow, agonizing death. For his book, Lee Strobel interviewed a medical doctor who described what Jesus must have gone through. As the person slows down his breathing, he goes into what is called respiratory acidosis. The carbon dioxide in the blood is dissolved as carbonic acid, causing the acidity of the blood to increase. This eventually leads to an irregular heartbeat. In fact, with his heart beating erratically, Jesus would have known that he was at the moment of death, which is when he was able to say, "Lord, into your hands I commit my spirit." And then he died of cardiac arrest. Because the two criminals who were crucified with Jesus had not yet died, their legs were broken so that they would suffocate. When the soldiers came to break Jesus' legs, they found that he was already dead. Just to be sure, one of them pierced his chest with a spear. The medical expert interviewed by Strobel described what happened this way. The spear apparently went through the right lung and into the heart. So when the spear was pulled out, some fluid, the pericardial effusion and the pleural effusion, came out. This would have the appearance of a clear fluid like water, followed by a large volume of blood, as the eyewitness John described in his gospel. It's worth noting that Old Testament prophecies about the death of the Messiah say that none of his bones would be broken, but that would be pierced, even though the execution method of the Jews during that time was stoning. Jesus' body was brought down from the cross, and a prominent Jewish leader asked permission to have Jesus' body so he could bury him in his own family tomb. The burial preparations had to be done quickly because the Sabbath began that Friday night at 6 p.m. After that, no work could be done. Jesus' body was placed in the tomb, and a large boulder was placed in front of it to keep anyone from stealing the body. Did the crucifixion, death, and burial of Christ take place? Without a shadow of doubt, yes, the evidence says it most certainly did.